we want to help you succeed, and we can't do any of this without you. And they really, I think their actions speak louder than their words in a lot of ways, but they definitely made that a really important point.
Hey there, I'm Robert Jones, and welcome to my short form podcast called Market Smarter, Not Harder. In each episode, I sit down with small business owners and ask them to share insights into how they've grown their business, successes that they've had, failures, industry trends, and overall insights into business in general. Today, I'm joined by Daniel Jones, owner of Harpeth Decks, located in Franklin, Tennessee, and pretty much an overall great dude. His company installs absolutely gorgeous Trex decks and exterior products throughout the whole Williamson County area, and we just sit down and talk about current industry trends and what he sees as the future of Trex decking. Thanks, Daniel, for joining me again. Talking Trex, remodeling, everything. It's good to see you back.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
So I've actually got kind of a more formal list of things, that we can kind of go over. And one is, I think we were kind of starting to talk about this before we started recording here is, have you noticed any difference or a slowdown this January as opposed to last January?
We have not, and it's been wild. I'm hoping it's a sign for the year, but usually this time of year is like we're kind of getting to the end of our lead times, and we're only a week or 2 or 3 out on scheduling. But this time we're booked out further than like in the fall or anything. We're like trying to figure out how to get everything done that we need to. It seems like we're not getting as many leads, but the ones we have are like really ready to go, committed. And I've had 3 or 4 people in the last, really since the beginning of January, that have reached out that were like had delayed their project from 6 months ago, 8 months ago, and they're some big projects. So it seems like it's been really fun so far. So not as much of a break as we usually get though.
So are a lot of these coming from December? Or are you seeing, or I guess I should say, are you also seeing people that are kind of like just trying to get ideas in January and then thinking like, this is what we're going to do this spring or this summer? We're just kind of get an idea of design, pricing, things like that.
I have had really more like contract signatures. I think people that are wanting it done by the spring. It's sometimes we do people that are start putting their foot in the water now to kind of start get design ideas, but it seems like in the last, like this year, it's people that are really like ready to go, kind of get going, sign the contract. So it's I've not had anybody that's like delayed. I mean, people that previously delayed it are moving forward, and then really nobody that's like delayed things right now are just kind of being soft. So yeah.
Now, are you of those contracts? So I messaged you the other day about it was a beautiful deck you did in the Governor's Club. How far out do you typically go? I mean, obviously, Metro Nashville is a pretty large area. The difference between Franklin, Murfreesboro, East Nashville, things like that. So how far do you go? Do you go to, say, Manchester or Clarksville? How far out do you take leads?
We if we're going out that far, I will usually pre-qualify them. But if it's a big enough job, then we'll do it. So we had a really big job in Sparta, Tennessee. So that was about 2 hours from us. That the guys questioned if it was worth it, but it was a gorgeous kind of showcase, higher profit margin because we knew it was going to be just more overhead for us to go out there and do all that. We have one coming up in Springfield, Tennessee, which is it's about an hour north of our office location, and it's going to be a drive, but it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful project on a kind of a house where somebody is like, "This is what I want." They know it's gonna be expensive, but it's going to be a over 6 figures, really cool job. So if they're large enough, we'll drive for them. But for the most part, we're trying to stay really within like a 30, 45 minute radius of the office of Franklin. So, and that's really where most of our stuff is. We pretty quickly get priced out of places like Murfreesboro.
Sure. Makes sense.
People are for sure. This area, people are generally willing to pay a little bit more to have nicer quality and better materials, stuff like that. And that's typically where we shine.
Now, do you, I should say, one of the benefits that we have to going to sort of those outskirt areas that are, 45 minutes outside of town is that we generally see a much higher conversion rate because
Mm.
oftentimes in those areas, there's not a lot of, I guess you should say, reputable companies. There's a lot of chuck in the trucks.
There are, yep.
Um, so there's always that apprehension of, do I want to drive 55 minutes for a lead? It's like, yeah, well, that 55-minute lead is most likely going to convert a little higher because when we come up, we show up with what we have and our subs and our team, the
Yeah.
professionalism is just going to be so much higher than what they're used to. Do you see some of the same thing? I mean, you're typically going for a Franklin being a very, very affluent
Mhm.
area, um, especially the difference between, Franklin and Murfreesboro or Cool
Yeah.
Springs or something like that. Do you see anything like that when you go to those outskirt areas?
We do, and, you're right in that people are surprised by um your professionalism and all that there. But we typically see that those are bigger projects too. Like I don't know why I don't feel like we get a lot of leads for, repairs or anything in the middle of nowhere. It's usually like, we're doing like a front and back deck, porch, cable railing, everything in the middle of like keep your own like nothing hardly there. And we're wrapping that one up now. But yeah, right. I mean, it seems like if you're going out sometimes, you're able to kind of show up in a bigger way. Their jobs are not as common, but when you go out there, people are excited by that. So that's a good point. I'm not
Well,
really.
that's an excellent you mentioned that too. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Those are often jobs where we get where it's, I need a new roof, I want all new siding.
Yeah,
Matter of fact, I got 15 windows. Go ahead and replace that. Like they just really
yeah,
want to get it all done.
right.
Um, so you convert higher, and they are generally bigger jobs.
Yeah,
Which we do pre-qualify them a little bit more. We're not going to drive an hour and 15 minutes to replace two windows or a
hmm
6x6 deck or something like that.
yeah.
Um, so going over into decks, specifically Trex, obviously, um, have you noticed any difference in what people are asking for in the material? And do you have any kind of, or how do you handle uh, price conscious people when they have, obviously, you've got TimberTech, you've got Trex, and then you have wood. Are you seeing that change any? And if you are, is it pricing related? Um,
Yeah, that's tough. Um, I would I would say it's funny you say this because I had a lot of conversations about some guys this last week about it. There's a lot of guys that still feel like enhance is like really one of the best things you can put down on deck. And I changed my tune on that a couple of years ago when we started to go back to some of the decks that we've done with enhance, just doing like little repair stuff like screws or whatever. And I started to see something that may not even the customers noticed, but even just a couple of years into it, there was more fading than I had seen with any of the Transcend stuff, and then the surface just wasn't as like a it wasn't it was a little bit more worn, I guess. So not like scratched or anything, but just like a little bit marred, I guess, would be the right way to put it. Versus like the Transcend decks we go back to that are 5 or 6 years old are like they still look brand new. And so all this go back to say, I started really telling people that I recommended that Transcend. And I think when you tell people that you're going to just have a prettier deck for a little bit longer, that 10% more, whatever it is that the Transcend is, seems to be something that they're willing to make that investment in. I've seen like last year, especially a huge kind of jump up in that. So, um, if somebody's looking at wood, then the enhance is kind of a great entry level up into there. But if they're coming to me with they're like, I want a composite deck, then it's usually like seem to have done a lot more Transcend than the enhance. And I think it's just because that like educating the customer, right? Like it's such a cliche, but people really don't know what they don't know about a lot of the composites. And so, um, you know, if they're already really budget conscious, the enhance is great. But if they're coming out with a composite, then Transcend seems to be a really good option for them.
with the catalog that Trex offers, I know you and I talked a little bit last time about kind of uh, our issues with railing. Um, I, it
It's
is
great timing that you brought that up because they
yeah,
just announced so much, other railings now.
yeah. I think we've got Blake scheduled to be out here
Yeah.
next month to kind of talk about all that. I mean, that was one of those areas I think you and I both agree that there was certainly room for improvement, whether that be pricing Is that something that you're kind of looking to maybe reevaluate, with these new products?
Absolutely. Yeah. Westbury is a huge aluminum railing that we use just because of the pricing on the Trex. But it sounds like their select line of aluminum and steel railing now is going to be really comparable. And it's much easier sell, I think, when you go to somebody and say, we're going to use a Trex decking and a Trex railing. I think people like that generally. And so I'm really excited for that. And um, I haven't seen any pricing on it yet, so that'll really they determine it. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to start using a lot more of that just to kind of simplify our offering as well. But I am excited about a lot of that because I think they've been lacking in a couple areas there.
And I mean, I agree. I like the idea of kind of. I know it's not the same thing as, say, with roofing material. Whether you go with, a GAF or a Owens Corning, you can kind of sell a roof system. These are
Mhm.
all the products. They're all warranted together. It's easy to order. It's easy to
Yep.
install. Ideally, we'd love to be able to see that with Trex, where it's here's the boards, here's the railing, here's the clips, here's, you know,
Yep.
whether you're not, everything. It's just a lot easier to install, order. So if that's something that they become a little bit more competitive with pricing,
Yeah.
that'll be interesting to see. We actually just recently, I don't know if it was you that recommended this or not, um, talking about looking at other vendors or Trex boards. We went to, I believe it was Lowe's, and the service we've gotten for Trex via Lowe's has been just above and beyond.
That's great.
The pricing is great. Uh, just how they work with you, it's been incredible. And I can't remember if you recommend that or not, but we did go through that, and that's
I've not
been a
had good
game
luck
changer.
with lumber. That's great because say with lumber yards in general have not been a great source for us. It's typically like either like Decks and Docks is like that's our big supplier that does a lot of that specifically, and then like Home Depot or Lowe's, we kind of do a mix of those. But
Mhm.
that's really awesome because the pricing is a big one, but the service is is really that's the most important thing I think for us.
Yeah.
We're having to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I've had an issue just recently with somebody was taking a week to send me a quote back and I was like, I can't do that. And actually that day, next day.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, especially if you're because honestly, that comes back on you, not
Oh,
them. The customer's not gonna be upset with Lowe's or Home Depot or whomever it was, lumberyard. They're upset with you. Um, with Trex, and again, we mentioned this before, it is amazing how much clear and quick communication really does make a difference. We are doing our first home show, next week, actually next weekend,
cool.
and, we're in the past few weeks, the process of kinda getting everything put together. I messaged Blake, and within 10 minutes, "What do you need?" And within a few days, we've got a beautiful display, we've got just all this stuff
Yeah.
within just a few days, and I don't get that with anybody else.
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to just, put Trex on this big pedestal, but they're doing it themselves, and I think
Yep.
where we get excited about working with them and really pushing this product is because you really do get that feeling of our success is tied to theirs and vice versa.
It's
And you
funny.
can tell they actually do care.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said that multiple times at the summit, the retreat is just we're literally we are here because you as the contractors are promoting us and we want to help you succeed and we can't do any of this without you and they really I think their actions speak louder than words in a lot of ways, but they
Mhm.
definitely made that a really important point. Um, this last week too. So I completely agree. We've had great,
For
just
sure.
over the top all that. Blake has been an awesome resource. Tyler has been incredible. I don't know if you've ever met him, but
Mm.
he's kind of like I guess Blake's boss, but kind of a larger area rep.
Sure.
And he's been over the top as well. So yeah, we've got just that, and that service is so important. When somebody's like, "Well, why don't we go with this?" Home Depot brand or cheap composite decking. It's like, well, you can, but if you have any issues or any point you're um, you got a warranty claim, like they're going to be gone. You're not going to talk to
Yeah.
anybody. So, yeah, that partnership is super important.
Well, what with Trex, um, what are some things that you've seen when with the installation where you or what problems do you see kind of come up a little bit more than you would with, say, just traditional wood? Or even comparing it to a competitor. Are there
Yeah.
any issues that you come across
Um,
regularly? Not to say that it's a
sure.
defect of Trex,
Yeah,
but because obviously they're a lot harder to work on. If you've got guys
they
on their
are.
knees all
Right.
day long, you're gonna need some knee pads.
Yep, for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, is there anything that you see?
The biggest thing that it's like whenever I'm walking a job site that I'm looking at, um, point out to the guys. One is like just making sure that you get the screws all fastened. I know that sounds like a dumb thing, but when you've got like 500 clips on a deck, you can feel when one of them is not fully tight. And so we're finished up this week a 13,000 square foot install of a Trex deck. And I literally told the guys, I'm like, you should walk around everywhere and feel because and I know we're gonna get calls back for this, but that's a it's something this as you're going across, right? So it's a big deck, yeah, for sure. But um, the other thing that I see guys do that we have to go back and it creates a lot of problems is when they'll put all their clips down and then they'll go back and cut for that breaker board and then they don't kind of space the clips back as close as they can get it to the breaker board and you start to have that kind of ski tipping on the ends. So I always make sure when I'm walking to tell the guys like make sure that you bring these clips all the way over as far as you can, especially with the enhanced boards. If they start to tip like that, it's really tough to get them to like sink back down. um, that's one of my biggest complaints with the enhanced board is the one is like the 16 on center versus 12 on center. You can really feel it, but the ski tipping on ends is really prominent. So making sure like when you're installing that we get those clips on the ends is like those two things really just fastening it correctly are the huge that makes the heat show its long term. So
How do
uh,
you handle customizations when it comes to decks? I know that you uh, have the machine that can kind of bend the boards and curve around them. How do you price that, and how do you handle those customizations? 'Cause there was one that I saw of yours where you had these beautiful brick columns. I'm
yep.
guessing you probably didn't do those, or maybe you did. Um,
We have done some of those before.
okay,
And typically I will, if it's something, I know most of the time what it's going to cost, what some of our subs charge for that kind of thing. If it's something more custom, I'll try to get a price, or even something close ahead of time. All of our stuff is fixed cost. I know a lot of guys that still do like the cost plus, and I don't. I think for the customer, having a fixed price going into it saves them a lot of money, and it also incentivizes you to do things a little bit cheaper, but and find ways to do things that are the right way, but still good value. But so anyway, all that to say, I try to keep some of that done ahead of time. We're still learning on the bending. Is That's a challenge for sure. I know some guys do like linear feet bent board or like a certain how many bent boards you have, but we're still trying to find that um, see how long it's going to take to do some of that stuff because they're also all different, right? Like, even though you may have a bent in one place, you still every one of those is different, and so a little bit of experience comes into that. But um, there are also I've not looked into this, but I know there are companies that you can template out what you need and send them that template, and then they will send you a curved board. So if you're trying to like get a real specific number, there are companies that will do that, and that way then you're like, oh, okay, maybe I can save some money if I do it myself, but that would be kind of like a market rate for it. But it's tough. It's kind of a little bit of a trial and error there, and some of you look at as statement pieces that would be one coming up in the the large one actually in Greenbrier is going to be multiple curves, back, forth, stairs, rails, all of that curved. And we, I know going to that, we're probably not going to make as much money on it, but um, it's going to be really, really pretty. The customers told us that they want us to have a photographer out to take pictures and be able to use that like on our website prominently. So I'm willing to lose a little bit on that in order to get a piece that's going to really showcase us and differentiate us from competition. So
Yeah, that would
it's a long
definitely
answer,
make you
but
stand out. No, no, you're that's perfect. Are you noticing any trends that are kind of coming up or that have changed over the past few years? Or
you
people
know,
that are
it's
asking for?
yeah, it's we got into this and we'd never done a curb deck until last year. We did a commercial one, so a little bit different. But then the start of this year, end of last year, start of this year, we've had 3 requests for curb decks that we've never done before. So I know for a while it was kind of like it was really really popular. Then it kind of went out of style a little bit, and it seems like it's come back a little bit more. I don't know if that's just us getting in front of more people that are looking for that more custom work. But I feel like in the last really couple months, we've had one more interest in that than we had before. So it's really kind of cool. I mean, we enjoy doing those.
What colors are you typically seeing? Color
Uh,
combinations?
um, you know, yeah, I assume this is outside of curving, right? It's not
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just in general.
yeah. We're doing less uh accent colors than we used to, which is interesting because I love doing that. But I think it seems like, especially if somebody has like a covered porch, like a big project, they're like they don't want to make it too busy. But we see a lot of like toasted sand, coastal bluff in the hand sign. Those are some of my favorites. And I was trying to think that like the jasper and the caramel go really well together. I'm a big fan of that. But it's funny we don't do nearly as many of those kind of accents as we used to.
We see a lot of Foggy Wharf seems to be the one that's just huge here. People love that.
I don't know what it is, and maybe my sample is weird, but we've done one deck, I think, in 5 years. That's Foggy Wharf.
Wow.
Like
That is so
crazy.
common
People are
here.
like, "It's a great color." I'm like, "I love it too," but, like, I've done one of those, which is really funny. Everybody says it's really popular,
Yeah.
so,
Huh.
um, I know. It's weird. Rocky Harbor is, like, far and
Yeah.
away our popular color, so
Yeah, that one's always there. I mean, most all of ours, they want the typical color and then picture frame a different color around it. I mean,
yeah,
that's almost every deck we do for the most part.
right.
It just looks good. You
I
know,
love that. Yeah,
it's
totally, especially
simple.
yeah, a rail that has a little bit of that, different color in there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's simple, it's clean, it's enough of a custom characterization look, but not crazy. So yeah,
Where do you see sort of the future of Trex? And one of the things that you're seeing a little bit more is a lot of their color, or sorry, their temperature technology that they're
yeah,
using. Uh, what are some things you'd like to see over the few years, or what you see happening? I mean, I would love for that to be that technology to go even further and just to be blanketed across all their lines. I think it'd be
yep,
amazing, especially if you have a pool.
totally,
I mean, if you've got a pool and 3 kids, it can be kind of difficult to sell a composite deck. You
totally.
know, it's not going to feel good.
No,
When
no,
you're in the South.
that to me is one of the biggest biggest takeaways from a composite deck, especially back around a pool, like you're saying, is we do some of those, but it's always like every single time it's been like, man, this is so hot on our feet around this. So, um, I like you definitely think that that should become more normal. I think even like previously composite boards were just like a wood classic mix, and then caps composites came in, and that's now the industry standard. I would hope that the heat mitigation would do that as well, because Trex doesn't like advertise it the same way that like Moisture Shield does with their like cool technology. But I really think that their cooling boards aren't just as good as the Moisture Shield. And I tell people when we're talking about the lineage limers, Transcend, and some of the cool technology is like, you know, there's a lot of people that say this, and I was skeptical of this when Trex came out, but you can do a heat gun test on it, if you put your hands on them, like there really is a big difference. And so I would hope that would be, more common across the board. Um, but I don't know. I'm excited that Trex is getting one of the rails. I know the fastener was a big thing for them, so it sounds like they're really trying to do a little bit more of the whole kind of deck. The alternative framing will be an interesting piece for them to pick up, because they just recently, well, I say recently, now it's been a few years, but they sold the elevations. So it'd be interesting to see if they got more into a composite frame. I'm also surprised that they don't have like a PVC option. So I've never spoken with them about that, but I know I think they did at one point. I think I was talking to somebody this week actually that said that they used to have a PVC. So, but I don't know that they really need that. So, but it's curious. I think, they've got just about everything else on the deck. Um,
I think
they do. So,
one
I'm
one
excited to
thing,
see how the railroads, honestly. I mean, that's such a big deal for them. So,
yeah, one thing that we would kind of like to see. I don't know if pricing becomes more competitive. Is the rain escape system? Um, we
yes.
just recently, uh, we just recently had an issue where we had quoted a rain escape system for a customer, and the that system alone equaled the cost of the deck.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were not very happy about it. We ended up
Right.
having to do a more just metal
Yeah.
system, but it's mainly because I guess the cost barrier for that rain escape, it was a very small deck, and that was the issue. If it was a much larger deck, it doesn't. It's not like here's a $10,000 quote, a $10,000 rain system.
Correct.
It's not as
Yep.
so having that maybe become a little bit more cost because it isn't. It's incredible,
It
and it's
is.
so easy to install,
Yep.
but just
It,
that barrier for entry it's sticker shock to a lot of people.
yeah, for sure. Well, and I tell people like this roll of tubing here is $40, and this little like foam tube is like 50, and they're like, and I need like 100 of those for my deck. You're like, it's a lot. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I do think it's the best system in the industry for
Mhm.
one because you can do whatever you want underneath it, like a wood ceiling or leave it open. But I also am a huge proponent and fan of the frame protection element that you get to that. The fact that you're above your joist so that they never see weather. Just because we've seen I have seen several decks that failed because they use like a just an underdecking system, which they're super popular. And the customer called me out because they were thinking their composite boards were moving a little bit, and we did a little research. I found that their whole framing system was rotted out, and they didn't know because they couldn't see it. But that moist air just sitting there just really rotted everything out. And so I'm a big fan of the Trex system for that reason. But you're right, it's pretty expensive. And I know some guys hate putting it down. I think with some experience, it's okay. But um, I don't know the solutions for that, especially because it seems like it's just plastic, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
complicated. So I don't know. We do a lot of it, and I really like it, but it's definitely expensive. So
I do like what you said about just the overall protection because it is kind of it's a tough sell when it's you spend all this money on a deck, but all of these boards are really reliant on it's still reliant on wood, and that's going to fail eventually. And this just kind of adds an extra layer of protection, even if you don't need the rain escape system. It's still protecting, and 10 years down the road, you may want it. You
right,
know,
exactly. And you
um,
can't go back at it later.
no,
Uh,
exactly.
that's the other thing about it that sucks. But um, yeah, I agree. I try to tell people that because the new wood framing is not going to last 50 years, right? They've got a board that's warranty for that long, but I mean, there's no way they're going to get that. So
Yeah.
having that landscape system definitely helps with that. So um, yeah,
Outside of decks or you all, um, are you seeing any other trades that are showing growth or even unexpected growth outside of decking?
I don't know. That's a good question. We get when I've not talked to our electrician enough to know if he's what they're doing, um, and if they're having that same kind of growth. I'm not plugged in to the whole industry, I think, as much as I should be on that. Um, it's also tough because Nashville is such a growing market that like
Yeah.
everybody's
Yes, it
always
is.
busy. So it's like it's hard to get a good gauge nationally, but it does seem like remodelers I've talked to are getting busier. So I'm really optimistic about the economy. I think just where construction's going in the next few years. So it's definitely makes me want to pedal to the metal and keep, you know, going while the fire's hot. So,
Yeah.
I'm optimistic.
All right, Daniel. Well, I appreciate you chatting with me a little bit, and they can find you basically all over the internet. Harpeth Decks,
Harpeth
Nashville. Yep.
Yep. Call me. Well, I'd
All
love to talk
right.
about it. So, yeah.
All right, man. I appreciate it.